Hello, awesome viewer. Welcome to episode 52 of KSP to Mars, where today, once again, we're actually going to go to Mars. If you watched yesterday's episode, you know we're in a quest for 800 science so that we can have fusion engines. Now, we're in it for the science, so first thing we're going to do is visit our science laboratories. We haven't visited them in a few years, game time, so they should have racked up some science points that can be added to the total, and we can have a look if they need nuclear fuel refueling. 81 science points from the Tech Lab 2. That is a lower amount than I had anticipated of getting. So let's have a look here. Yeah, the uranium fluoride is not quite run out, but it's getting close, and our reactor is almost completely full of actinides, which is nuclear waste. Let's see, we're still making energy. Efficiency is getting a little bit low. Oh, this is the generator. Yeah, we are still generating 500 megawatts of thermal power, so the science lab should be fine. And it is, but these guys will need a refueling mission before too long. The smaller reactor that is providing more power for now. Well, more power. It has a little bit more more power. Jesus, whew! Words are so hard. This small reactor has a little bit more fuel still in store because it probably uses it relatively slower. So, as soon as the big one runs out, we will have no more use for these transmitters. Well, we just need to power them more. That's it. They will be put on hold. They will be rejuvenated when this station gets bigger and better reactors, of course, when we get the science from Mars and the station around the moon. Let's go to that moon station now and collect the science from that. That should be a bit more because, well, the moon is more interesting than just plain old Earth. Let's have a look. Stations. The failed lander orbiting the moon. Of course, our station around Mars is not generating any science at the moment, for the simple reason that it doesn't have a nuclear generator anymore. So what we're sending today to Mars is 2 launches, reminiscent of 165 science points. That's wonderful. Yeah, I'm not going to spend too much time with these guys. Let's have a quick look at their reactor as well. That's here. That's still pretty well fueled, right? So what I was going on about, we need a nuclear reactor in Martian space. So today we're going to do 2 launches. One of them will have a Kerbal in it to land on Mars, basically reminiscent of the mission we tried a few days ago that tragically failed and killed our pilot. We're going to try that again with a slightly different mounting of parachutes, and we're also going to redesign the care package that was sent about 10-15 episodes back with many different parts. The atmospheric landers will be scrubbed because we have that now incorporated in our manned lander, so we don't need an unmanned probe anymore. That would just be superfluous. We might bring one. Just ooh, look at that! It's always nice to see the boosters from up close here in the VAB. Of course, this booster is obsolete. We are going to launch that with our new methane booster, so we can just go ahead and remove that whole thing. There we go. This is the beauty that is the care package. This was the atmospheric lander. That is going to be deleted. Oh no. Damn it, that is the root part for this thing, so it can't really be deleted. That's a pity. Right, that just means that I'm going to put this as a sub-assembly, so I can just attach that to a new vessel. Wait, did I just now somehow delete that? Let me hit Ctrl Z. This VAB sometimes still eludes me how this works. Right, so this is going to be a sub-assembly, the science package. Let's call that a science package. Anyway, I'm going to make that, and I will show it when it's in a presentable form. So yeah, here we have the Care Package Mark II. Let me just name that Care Package Mark II, and it's quite a lot more modest design as compared to the previous Care Package. See, this one has a nuclear reactor, powered with an RCS drive to rendezvous with the station around Mars and power it for science. It's also going to power the care package in flight. It still has the two little ionic probes. I've named them the ionic slaves. They have, well, pretty much no mass to them whatsoever, just a xenon tank, a ion drive, a probe core, and of course some solar panels and science experiments. These things will immediately die when they are no longer in the vicinity. Oh, they do have a battery, so they will die after a few seconds. These are intended for the moons Phobos and Deimos, and hopefully the gravity there will be low enough that they can in fact land on them. If not, they will transmit their findings from the space around them, of course. What is going to happen, because as you might remember, is that the Mars station is actually orbiting retrograde. This will enter the Martian sphere of influence and establish a very elliptical orbit. Then at the apex, the apoapsis of such an elliptical orbit, the ion probes will detach and use their ion power to reverse direction and meet up with Phobos and Deimos, a fairly high-intensive, high delta V maneuver. This whole assembly will then rendezvous with the station, where the RCS drive will well, maneuver the nuclear reactor in place. So the whole ship is going to enter a retrograde orbit around Mars, whereas then these ion probes will use their ion power to well, to change orbit direction, and for that purpose they are probably going to dock together so as to make that one maneuver instead of two. Right, so I'm going to add the booster and launch this, and I will see you once this whole thing, this whole bundle of joy is in space. So here we have the care package in orbit, and there's not a great deal I want to share with you apart from one mistake, and it is a mistake. Look, we're sending a nuclear reactor to Mars. There we want it to operate as long as possible. We will be far removed from refueling, from extra uranium or thorium or what we want to put in it, so it would be nice if it lasts as long as possible. Now, these reactors last a long time, but it is definitely a finite time. Now, looking at the Kerbal alarm clock, we see that our launch window is a year and 123 days removed from present. I knew this, but I didn't give that a second thought. Of course, it means that our reactor will now be lingering in orbit for 1.5 years almost, just exhausting fuel. And that's a pity. I could shut it down. No, I can't. I need a Kerbal for that. But even if I did shut it down, I wouldn't be able to power up this vessel again. Although, yeah, I could put the solar panels. Can I actually shut it down? I don't think I can shut it down. It needs a Kerbal to shut it down. Anyway, yeah. Pity, too bad, nothing to be done about that. I am going to time warp forward to the launch window and then send this on its way to the red planet. Let's have a look. Can we time warp fast enough here? We're at a relatively high orbit, 400 kilometers. Yeah. Oh, look at that. We have a reactor shut down because of dangerous overheating. Ha! That's wonderful. Do we still have electricity now? Electric charge? Where is the electric charge? Yeah, we still have electricity. The reactor has shut down because I didn't deploy the radiators. That is wonderful. Now the Kerbals on site can activate it. Of course, that does mean that we do now need a source of power to retain control of the vessel, and we're going to deploy the solar panels for that. Yeah, so that problem I was talking about, it solved itself. Wonderful. That's great. So these solar panels are now deployed. They should serve to give us power. Wonderful. Let's see if we can time warp into the sun so I can see a little bit more. I'm going to deploy all of them. So the sun may charge those batteries always. Now, that time accelerating here close to Kerbin was quite a stroke-inducing affair, so I'm not going to do that anymore. I am instead going to switch to, well, what shall it be? let's make it the power relay again. Switch to the power relay and do a quick 1.5 year fast forward, why not? And then launch our manned guy and send the care packages and him on their way to Mars. I just want to do this fast forward and then show you the vehicle that's going to land on Mars. I did already show it in a previous episode, but well, perhaps not all of you always religiously watch all my episodes. Of course you should, because they're all really, really good, and your life will be better if you watch a video every day. This has been scientifically proven by me. Yes, definitely. So we have 1 day until the launch window now. Oh dear, what happened here? What happened here to this power relay? Was there a rapid, unplanned, uncontrolled disassembly? I sure hope there wasn't. It appears there might have been a rapid, unplanned, uncontrolled disassembly. Right. This is really strange. The structural failure on the phased array microwave transceiver, I can get that. The Kraken ate it. Something happened. But then this last entry, the Probodidyne Octo collided into the spaceplane hangar. How did that bomb the planet? Anyway, time has been accelerated. Some evil time fairies, they wreaked their havoc on the power relay. That's just something we're gonna have to live with. It's quite easy to shoot up another one, and we're not planning on using the beamed power anyway. So, yeah, I don't know what happened. The spaceplane hangar is fortunately one of the buildings we don't use, so the time fairies, they can have it, as far as I'm concerned. So, now comes the most exciting bit of the whole episode, of course, selecting a Kerbal for our Martian Conqueror 2. Here we go, here we go, here we go. Loading that up. Oh yeah. Here we have it. A monster of Delta V with parachutes rear facing, so they produce optimal drag with the heat shields deployed. I think today we should probably be able to do it. Hopefully. Hopefully, hopefully, hopefully. Corrigh, the veteran from the moon. Yes, let's just send Corrigh out again. I'm sure he'll do great. Yeah, I'm sure he'll do great. Anyway, I'm going to launch him into orbit, set up... Oh dear. Here we are in launch, not the serene orbital display you might have been expecting, or even the red planet. No, no, we're in orbit, and well, we're not in orbit, we're in launch, and one of the boosters has prematurely separated. So, although I think everything was going horrible, I was going to like make a whole spiel about how we'd have to work hard to save Corrigh and whatnot. This stage is almost burned out, and the rocket is still mostly pointing upwards. So far, the gimbaling capability. Look, there are 2 engines missing. There's 2 engines that have burned out, and one that has just completely vanished. I have no idea what happened here, but this stage is almost completely gone. So we could ditch it. Yeah, we're losing a few hundred meters per second of Delta V, if that. We're still pointing up, we're still going. So yeah, the mission is still a go. We lost a bit of rocket, but it doesn't appear to have been catastrophic. So here we are now in the methane stage, and now the question is, of course, look at the nav ball, if we can pitch back over into the proper direction, and if that turns out to be aerodynamically stable. The whole point of that mainsail stage, woefully inefficient as it is to provide some steering authority of the pad, because this stage of the rocket has, well, none of it really. We are now at a very strong angle of attack relative to our motion through the air, but our rockets are strong. I wonder if we can save this. It doesn't look like it though. I think we're too far out of the prograde factor, and we're now tumbling under aerodynamic forces. Yeah, so it does become a game of can we save Corrigh. I think we should, because we're not under SRB power anymore, and well, he does carry a lot of parachutes, so let's just see if we can make that happen. Shutting down those boosters, separating them. Let's thrust away from that exploding stack for a bit. Some explosions going off as we hit the, well, the outer tanks. Let's separate more. Here we have this bit. We can probably use this to get away from the rest of the explosions. Corrigh is keeping his head cool. I'm going to get a little bit of altitude going so that we're not going to come down in the middle of that debris field. Yeah, that seems to be going well so far. Let's separate this whole stage. Everything. Get out. Oh, when the tanks are full, the Separatrons don't really have so much separating power. Look at that. So this whole rocket is coming apart now. We're into the nuclear stage now. Let's separate these outer tanks, ditching the science experiments. We don't really need that. Oh, I would have liked the actual parachutes on those. Oh well, let's separate more stuff. Separate yet more stuff. What are we separating now then? There goes the heat shield. We don't need that, that's for sure. Is it for sure? Yeah, we're only 15 kilometers up. That shouldn't be heat shield material. And let's deploy the parachutes then. And if we now drop away the nuclear stage, we are in our capsule, above all the debris that's falling back to Earth. And yeah, Corrigh will be safe. So that gives me the authority to revert to the launch. Yeah. And here we are. I've taken the liberty to put both Martian vessels, well, Mars-bound Martian explorer vessels. I put both of them on Mars intercept trajectories. Well, the second one, the one I'm controlling now, the Care Package Mark II, that's still underway. We're staring at the slowly increasing apoapsis marker. I can't get an intercept from here, and I'll tell you why. Here we are on Earth, and this is the point where in a energy efficient Homeland transfer we will encounter Mars. Observe that that is like completely opposite the ascending and descending nodes. These of course are the points where our orbits match planes. This means that I have to do a mid-course correction now. If the ascending and descending nodes are closer to the starting and ending points, you can make an intercept happen without matching orbital planes. Now though, even if whatever I do from here to change the plane, it's not going to have any effect directly opposite here. So this is one of the few positions from which it is actually quite impossible to get an intercept. I think, at any rate. Maybe the separation, the 1.8 to 1.9 degrees, is small enough that you can brush by the edge of the sphere of influence. But say this was like a 30-degree separation, then from here I would just be physically unable to get an intercept. You couldn't do the burn well enough. Well, I suppose, of course, physically impossible is a big term to throw around. You could spend dozens of kilometers per second of delta V and go on over top of the sun, make it a polar orbit relative to the sun, and then crash into its sphere of influence that way. So yeah, I suppose it is possible, but keeping it in the same plane as well, as the planet we're departing from, it is rather impossible to get any immediate encounter. That's why we are planning on doing mid-course rendezvous. Well, not mid-course rendezvous. I was thinking of a midnight rendezvous, that song. But no, we're going to do a mid-course correction here at the descending node. So to plan that in the alarm clock, we need to be in the solar sphere of influence. So for that purpose, we are going to employ time warp. I'm already employing time warp to the tune of 4 times. Oh, look at that. I forgot to separate these fuel tanks. Well, that's a delta V penalty. A small one, but still an actual one. So let's separate them now. Bye bye. And we have now 5.2 kilometers per second of delta V left. Most of that extra amount of delta V compared to the previous care package mission is due to the fact that We've used a more efficient booster and we're not carrying as many probes, although the nuclear reactor of course is quite heavy. This means that our mission plan to first establish a retrograde orbit, then deploy the ion satellites at a high apoapsis and then do all the rest should probably work out. So for now let's time warp forwards to the solar sphere of influence, and then I'm going to plan, look, here's the Martian Conqueror number 2, this is our manned ship. The courses are pretty similar today. They're probably going to arrive at a fairly, wow, they're really similar, less than 100 meters per second difference. Wonderful. Yeah, they're probably going to arrive fairly simultaneous, which is of course good. I'm going to plan those mid-course corrections, do them as well, I'm not going to show you that, and then I will show you the landing attempt, the most exciting bit of this whole episode. Well, maybe not the whole series, but definitely today's high point, and we'll see if Corrigh will actually be able to land. So leave the orbital finagling to me, and in a few seconds we'll be near the red planet. It's like going in stasis. Close your eyes, count to 3, 1, 2, and here we are. Course corrections completed. Oh shit, I meant to continue with 3, of course, that nice and tranquil countdown. Course corrections completed, no mind to the past. And I know I promised you to give you the landing today, but Orbital Mechanics has it that the care package is arriving before the Martian Conqueror, so to maintain a semblance of continuity so that you might understand at least a little bit what's going on, we are going to take care of the care package first. So, as I already indicated, it's going to be important to establish a proper orbit for this baby, because we want to rendezvous with the Mars station. And what I wanted to do initially was to drop the ion probes in a high orbit, but with the nuclear reactor shut down, that's not really an option, because then the guidance systems for, well, these probes, they then don't have any power. So, wait, that was a terrible sentence. If I drop off the ion probes, which solar panels are currently powering the guidance units for the nuclear reactor, which is turned off, then I won't be able to make the reactor rendezvous with the lab. So I need to set the Mars lab as a target. If I can please do that, game. It will let me highlight it, but not really select it. Oh well. Let's see what we can do to make this encounter a little bit closer to the planet. Yeah, this is going nowhere. Let me set up an encounter, and I'm going to be right back when I did that. No, I just did it, so no need to go away. I don't know why I didn't really want to cooperate the first time around. Now, we have so much delta V in this rocket that, see, we have, well, not as much as I was expecting, about 3.8 kilometers per second. Still, that's enough that we don't really need to rely on any fancy aero braking, so that's good. I want to set the Mars lab as a target. Please let me do that. It will evidently not let me do that. I think we have no choice but to time warp forwards and observe the way it moves. It moves that way, so we need to pass by the planet on that side if we want to have any hope at all of establishing an orbit in the correct orientation. Yeah. Aren't I good with languages? Oh, that's wonderful as well. The maneuver node system goes completely haywire when trying to make an orbit reverse from a hyperbolic trajectory. It just doesn't do that. Look at that. It's going nuts. Oh wait, maybe I did manage to do it here. It's somewhat reversed. Yeah, there we go. Reversed orbit. But that sure went nuts. That's one thing that's for sure. Let's see now. Yeah, this looks like an orbit that I could work with. Yes. How much delta V? 427 meters. So not a trivial amount, but that's what you get for not fine-tuning orbits earlier, which is something I didn't do. Right, we're not doing it at the 17-hour mark here. We have some fuel remaining in the tanks, so what I'm going to do is remove the maneuver node and just burn from here until it's at an agreeable place in the sky. And I want to set the Mars lab as a target. I don't really understand why it's not letting me do that. And let's see. There we have it. A nice orbital reversal maneuver. Our periapsis will be in a day. That will give us ample time before the Martian Conqueror arrives, which will be in 11 days. So we can probably do all these operations before before running out of time, really. So that's good. That's good news. So let's see, do we have some science here that we can transmit home? I don't think we have anything here that hasn't been done before. Yeah, no, this has to be returned home. Anyway, let's store it in the drive anyway. And proceed to time warp to the periapsis, where we can attempt a capture burn. And I'm sure that as soon as we have an actual orbit, it will let me target the... yeah, this maneuver node is not important anymore. It will let me actually target the Mars lab, where we can then set up a rendezvous with it. And wouldn't that be nice? We'll do the first exoplanet. Well, an exoplanet is in another solar system, but we'll do the first rendezvous around a planet that's not Earth. Yeah. Let's have a look at setting that up. I really dislike how the game just is so bothersome about where you click. Let's see if we can actually do this. Oh, crikey. That's a lot more delta V than I was expecting on spending. But we are at a just a 4-degree separation, so if we burn like this, we could possibly get an encounter right around this area. Although we are talking separations of hundreds of kilometers, so that's not actually looking that good. But yeah, I'm for sure going to keep an eye on that distance indicator when we burn, because then I can just stop the burn when it's close and finish it off when we're right close to the station. Well, geez, eloquent sentencing is not my forte today. Holy moly. Anyway, I'm going to do this burn. It's a bit larger than I was expecting, but we do have it in our tanks. So one thing is for sure, the ion probes are going to enter the system. We are not going to crash on Mars because we're not going to attempt crazy aerobraking maneuvers, and we will rendezvous with the Mars lab, probably. So firing the engine, and I'll check back with you once this maneuver is completed. So with the rendezvous all set up, there is a little bit of a problem. It is set up more or less with a separation approach of 129 kilometers, a relative speed of 286 meters per second. Unfortunately, the amount of fuel that's remaining in either vessel is a square 0.0 amount. So yeah, we're 200 meters per second or 400 meters per second short of actually rendezvousing. So that's a shame. Another shame is that we've now put the care package in a retrograde orbit for no reason. Well, we had a reason, but that didn't pay off. So our ion probes now face an unreasonable challenge. In order to not lose them and, well, cry, I have devised the following plan. One of them, fortunately I do have two, one of them will ignore the fact that it's traveling in a retrograde orientation and just attempt flybys of these moons. If that one proves to be maneuverable and has a lot of delta V and so on, then the other one might try and flip around and do things that way. I had thought that maybe with this RCS tank I could steer just the reactor over to the station, but of course this doesn't have any power in it, so that would fail immediately, unfortunately. Let's see, we do have 1000 electric charge in the generator. Wait, is that currently generating? How is this generating? Ah, it's generating 5 kilowatts. That should still be enough to power the command core. Ooh, tempting. I might be able to do that. How much delta V does a 100 RCS units give? Not enough, I don't think. Could try that at some point in the future, maybe. Anyway, for now it's ion test drives. So let's undock this and switch to that wonderful vessel. Now of course I want to deploy all the solar panels. So at least I think there's one here. How did this get through the design process with just 2 out of 3 solar panels? That's ridiculous. Oh man, this project, this mission, these things. This is nuts. Okay, we're gonna go for this one. And that means that we need to boost our orbit out a little farther. And then attempt a plane change to catch it. And of course, all the time we're going to ignore that we are in fact orbiting the wrong way. So let's have a look. Is the engine actually on? Go on, activate that engine. Now it's on. And the solar panels are actually supplying, well, not enough power, but enough for half thrust, not enough for half thrust. No, the solar panels are doing a horrible job of providing power for this engine. And that would also mean that any landing on this would be woefully underpowered. How did I think I was gonna get away with this? 2 solar panels and an ion drive? That does not compute. Oh well, no landings then, but at least we could attempt rendezvous with the moons. That is going to take a long time though. Do we have an engineer on this thing? We do not, so we have no idea how much delta V this would have. If we deploy the landing legs, we can see what our lander would have looked like. Very tiny. Yeah, I'm not confident that this is inspiring success. This does not make me feel very happy. This dim glow of the ions. If we punch it, what happens then? We do have some acceleration. The probe is very light. And we are accelerating away from the care package. We could, with a lot of patience, do this, but we have a far more interesting thing going on. And that is, of course, the Martian Conqueror. This will have to wait for a later date, or it might be abandoned in the face of budget cuts. We have here the Martian Conqueror. And I'm wondering, because this episode is running for quite a while already, whether to do the entry and landing or save that for the next one. No, this is the big Mars episode. We are definitely going to do the entry and landing on this one. There is one minor calamity that I can share with you already. The side tanks have run out, and that's because the need to change planes was not anticipated. Would have thought I would be able to set up a intercept from Earth, but I didn't. So these tanks are empty and have been dragged along for a while already. But they carry the parachute, so we can't ditch them just yet. Oh well, nothing to do about that. We are going to time warp forwards, and I'll set up a braking trajectory, and I will reconvene when we are entering the atmosphere. Here we are, coming up on the Martian atmosphere once again. I did the science, the gravity readings in space. They are safely tucked away on the landing struts here, so Corrigh, once landed, can retrieve those and store them in the capsule for return. Now, I did spend a fair amount more fuel than I would have liked altering the trajectory. It took 600 meters per second, or even 800 from the sphere of influence boundary to even meet the planet. And consequently, we're doing so at a fairly high velocity. I put the periapsis at 75 kilometers. Or let's check if I remembered that correctly. 75 kilometers, I put it at, well, 72. And hopefully that's going to lead to our imminent survival. Now, unfortunately, we will be landing on the night side, but fortunately I have the Kerbal Engineering plugin. At least I thought I had that. Yeah, I'm going to reload the game because I would like to have that. Quick save and a quick load. Let's see if that will reset that plugin. I would like the surface indicator, at least then I know when to scream, when to go into panic mode, and or whether to rejoice. No, it does appear that we need a full game reload for that. I'm going to do that. So there we go, reloaded the game, and we have the flight engineer back. And it's painting a troubling picture. We have 4.65 kilometers per second left, which I'm not sure is enough to get back to Earth. It is definitely enough to get back in orbit around Mars, though, I think. So worst comes to worst, we'll have to send a mission to come and get him. Of course, shouldn't forget to inflate the heat shield now that we're about to crash into the atmosphere. And that is getting in place just in time. Now we're in the atmosphere. Right, I want the surface mode from this more than anything else. And I'm going to hold off on actually deploying the parachutes I have here now until, well, until most of the deceleration has actually happened. I'm not sure if that's smart, but I'm going to go for it that way anyway. Orbital stats 72 kilometers. That should be a, well, a decent height. We're coming in on the dark side. Fortunately, because there is an atmosphere, it will not be quite as pitch black as, for instance, it would be on the moon. Atmosphere, of course, serves to scatter some of the light around from the day side to, well, generate a bit of ambient lighting, which a airless body such as the moon does not have. Right, so our orbital stats, has our periapsis decreased any yet? We are experiencing a lot of drag, well, a lot, 60 kilonewtons worth. That's enough to do some actual serious slowing. And we're about at periapsis. We're just going to see whether we are in for multiple passes or in fact we are not. Our periapsis is still 72 kilometers, and the troubling news, of course, is that we are still on a hyperbolic trajectory. So yeah, the mission is not going so wonderfully great at the moment. I'm going to wait until we are at least out of the atmosphere, and then I'll have to turn around and use the rocket to scrub the remaining speed. I'm coming in very fast. We were coming in at about 7 kilometers per second, which of course is rather fast, and it does look more and more like Corrigh will not in fact be returning to Earth in this rocket. Courtesy of my clumsy piloting, imprecise maneuver nodes, and of course the unlucky alignment for this transfer window. Anyway, here goes the nuclear engine once more, and we still can't separate any of the outer tanks because of course we need them as parachute mounts. So let's increase the time warp until we are at least captured. And I have a feeling that could be a rather big burn here with all the excess weight. This mission is already looking as though it might be one step away from the proverbial shambles, and that's not something I'm happy with at all. I don't know why the The 70-kilometer periapsis was evidently a bit too high. But, well, yeah, I feel like that should have worked. We're currently looking at a 64-kilometer periapsis. A 60-kilometer one, that's going to be a, well, a aggressive re-entry, let's call it what it is. We're still on a hyperbolic trajectory. I can see that because of the negative apoapsis, and that's of course silly. That means it's a hyperbolic trajectory. So this looks as though it might almost snap over to an actual capture trajectory. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, there we are. We are now captured, wonderfully so. That means I can stop burning my engine and have a look at 3.7 kilometers per second. That's getting in the range where it's even doubtful if we have enough for a for an ascent into orbit around Mars. Off the top of my head, I don't really know the orbital speed for it, but it should be, it's at least a few kilometers per second. And of course, even though the atmosphere is very thin, even on Mars we are looking at gravity losses, atmospheric losses, and those kind of things. So yeah, that might be an interesting rescue. Fortunately, this craft does have antennae as well, so even if we never make it off the planet, we are expecting science gains. Now, I'm slowing down here at apoapsis because I want to boost my periapsis just ever so slightly, because 18 kilometers, so that's 18 days until periapsis. 47 kilometers was what we used last time, and that wasn't really so good. 76 is too high though, because then we're just going to end up back here. I want to shoot for something like 50 or 60 kilometers. 60 kilometers on the dot. Yeah, let's use that and time warp forwards to that moment, and hopefully there we will be able to actually enter. Look at that, everything is circling in the wrong direction because of my genius orbital planning. I really am proud of that one, you can tell. Look at that, here we are coming up to that periapsis, 5 hours away. Whoa. Have to be careful with that time acceleration. With these elliptical orbits, it's quite possible to just skip past the planet. Now, we are in a captured orbit, so that wouldn't even be too bad, but of course it's, well, it's a little bit strange when these things happen, so we don't like that. So, orienting the ship nicely prograde again, so the heat shield can do its thing, and then cranking up the time acceleration to 4 times for the physical time warp. What we're wanting to do, we want to look at the apoapsis height. Of course, once that starts to come down a reasonable amount, then we have entry. Otherwise, we will escape out into space once more. In the meantime, let's have a quick look at our fuel tanks. We still have some fuel, and of course this delta V indicator might go up a bit once we drop the other tanks. But yeah, overall it's going to be mighty challenging to get back into orbit for one, and this craft is definitely not going back to Earth on its own. That just means that in the next launch window, in a year and a half, we are going to send a passenger shuttle. And looking at the amount of science we have to get, we might not get it today, but those ion probes, if they can manage to make it to Phobos and Deimos, we should get the science we need for a fusion drive, and that means that we might get a fusion ship to pick up our Martian astronauts. But first things first, let's have a look at this entry. Holy moly, I'm talking and we're time warping and we're at 50 kilometers now, so that's wonderful. Our apoapsis is rapidly falling. I think we're in for a actual entry, because our periapsis, and we're still falling, our periapsis is going to intersect the ground soon. And we want, of course, this readout, the surface display. We are decelerating. We are decelerating properly, and last time we got a lot of heating around the 30 kilometer mark. I'm really eating myself deciding when to pop the parachutes. If I do it now, Maybe the G-forces will be too bad. I'm going to pop a set of 2 parachutes now. Did that do anything? I hit the space bar, but let's see. These are not deployed quite yet, so I can hit the space bar again. Yeah, now they're deployed. They're not doing anything yet though. The pressure is probably still too low for them. Speaking of pressure, let's have a look at our pressure science instrument. This one here. Log the pressure data and radio that home. Just, oh shit, do I have the power for that? I think I have the power for that. Ooh. Yeah, that was radioed home successfully. Wonderful. And log that to keep it in the capsule for when we return. Wonderful. A materials bay from the upper atmosphere. Why not? 100 science points. Yes, let's keep that as well. And we're still decelerating. We're at 2.5 kilometers per second now. 35 kilometers up still. I'm going to deploy more parachutes. More parachutes deployed. The 4 rear-facing parachutes have now been deployed. The next step in this endeavor is to separate the side tanks here, and then I have to manually cut these parachutes. Here I can do that. Well, I think I thought I could do that. If I can't cut them, maybe the graphic has to show up first. If I can't cut those parachutes, we'll be in trouble. 2 of those rear-facing parachutes will be separated. Then we will ditch the heat shield, but we'll only do that once we are, well, very close to the ground. Then we're going to deploy the parachutes that are attached to the capsule and cut these rear ones so that we may orient properly. Once we're oriented properly, we are going to deploy the landing gear. Well, we can deploy the landing gear now actually. And we're going to use the engine to slow our descent, and then hopefully, of course, that will all work. We're at 20 kilometers altitude now. That's still pretty high up, and we are slowing down to about 1200 meters per second. It looks as though we may have done that without fiery crash doomers. Fiery crash doomers. These parachutes do have me worried a bit. They haven't quite shown up yet. If they all decide to show up at once, we might be in trouble. We are now still traveling at 800 meters per second and falling pretty rapidly actually. I'm going to... Oh dear. Is there anything I can do really? Look at that. Slow down. Oh god. Oh god. Oh, 1 kilometer. No, but the whole ship was crushed and destroyed and ruined, but Corrigh might still survive this. We're going to touch down very quickly. 20 meters per second. Is that survivable? It's not survivable for Corrigh. Damn it. He was the guy that was closest to the surface by a long margin. But his pod crashed just a measure too quickly. Damn it, that is a shame. The parachutes themselves, they have survived, and that teaches us something important, that parachute landings, I don't know if they're feasible for craft that actually weigh more than 5 kilograms here on Mars. The next lander I'm going to design will have a rocket to slow down on. As we saw, the big heat shield, aided by some of the parachutes, they will slow us down to about 1 kilometer per second, and then the rest will have to be done by a rocket. Now, it can be a nuclear rocket. It will be slightly less efficient than in space, or it can be a chemical rocket, but it has to be a rocket. That much is clear. Oh well, we have the ion probes to play with for the next episode. For now, I'm Lorenzo. Thanks for watching us crash again on the Red Planet. So far it's claimed 2 lives and dozens more spacecraft. Check back tomorrow to see how we do with the ion probes. Goodbye.